One of the more common myths often exposed in golf is the idea that lead wrist is absolutely flat in and around impact. It simply doesn't exist. We look at the 3D value, so there's tremendous considerations we have to acknowledge around that kind of lead wrist: how the player holds the club, the type of shot they're trying to play, the actual club they're playing, more than the ecological environmental considerations, the wind, the turf, the grass that they're playing from, for example. All these things you have to acknowledge. But typically speaking, what we see in that kind of lead wrist is it's going from a flex position, it is extending, it's not in an extended position, and it's moving towards extension as it moves into and through impact. So absolutely not in any way are we saying that lead wrist is extended impact. This is absolutely not in any case, unless there's certain types of shots. Often you can see around some of the short play shots, the short game shots, for example, but that's a whole different discussion. But typically speaking, what we see is that lead wrist is going from a flex position. Again, this can be as little as 1 degree to 30 degrees. It very much depends on the player. The lead wrist is extending, but it's not moving into an extended position. So at no point is that wrist absolutely flat. Again, flat to what? One could argue then that lead forearm. The wrist is going from flexion to extension, as it also kind of pronates, supinates through the forearm, as it's also moving through ulnar and radial deviation through that wrist. That lovely kind of 3-dimensional movement. It's actually 4 dimensions, 4th dimension being time, flexion, extension, ulnar, radial deviation, forearm, pronation, supination. So again, being very mindful. When we look at the 3D values, and the wrist is moving from a flex position, it's going into towards extension as it then extends post impact. The idea of this wrist flat is a tremendous myth again, which we actually see through the 3D value. It really doesn't exist in most. Possibly you can see it in some players, but rarely do we see it in any player. So again, tell a lie enough times, eventually it becomes the truth. Again, these new myths replace old myths. So being very mindful of the wrists, and this applies to both wrists, so moving through tremendous ranges, often at many stages in swing. And the idea of that wrist staying flat really doesn't exist. Again, allowing for context and certain circumstances around how we hold certain type shots, for example, but certainly in kind of most forward shots, the wrist is moving from a flex position then into and towards an extended position as it moves into and post impact.